Hi Stampers, this is Dawn, and today we're going to make this beautiful card using a brand new stamp set called Dandelion Wishes. It's so beautiful. So that's the front and then the inside. So we're going to do some sponging. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's start with the measurements. We'll start with the base. This is the Early Espresso cardstock, and this is cut at 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And then for the inside, the Very Vanilla piece is cut at 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, so then these layers for the front of the card, the crumb cake is cut at 3.5 inches wide, and then I think this is cut at 5 3/4. And I'm cutting these pieces longer so I can tear them. So 3.5 wide by 5 3/4, and then the Early Espresso is 3 1/4 by 4.5 long, and then the Very Vanilla is cut at 3 by 3 3/4. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some stamping. We're going to be using the Dandelion Wishes. Oh, the set is so beautiful. I love it, and I love the fonts. Oh, it's so pretty. We're also using the hand-delivered stamp set for the Happy Birthday right here, and also the Seasoned with Kindness for this Enjoy the Goodness of the Day for the inside. And these are both hostess-only stamp sets. All right, so let's grab our inks. We're going to use the Early Espresso. I just move the Very Vanilla here to stamp on first, and then we're going to use the crumb cake. So we're going to stamp our dandelions with the Early Espresso first. I did actually cut it longer because when we tear it, you want to have something to tear. You don't want to stamp it and then have nothing to tear at the very bottom edge. Okay, so we're just going to stamp that towards the top. Try to get it in the center. Isn't that beautiful? And then we're also going to stamp the inside with the other dandelion in the stamp set. I'm just going to stamp this towards the bottom edge. So pretty. Okay, so then for the inside, we're going to stamp this Enjoy the Goodness of the Day. And we're going to stamp this right below the dandelion. Okay, all right, now we're going to go ahead and stamp this dandelion around the edge of the base of the cardstock while we let that dry before we sponge. And I mainly just want the dandelion, so I'm just going to ink that part up, and I'm just going to rotate it around the card. And it's going to be a watermark because this is the Early Espresso cardstock, and we're also stamping with the Early Espresso Classic ink. So it's just more of a watermark or a tone-on-tone look to the background that I want. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and grab our sponges and our sponge dauber. I'm going to use the sponge for the edges of my Very Vanilla and my crumb cake piece with the Early Espresso. But we're first going to take our sponge dauber with our crumb cake. And I'm going to start with the front layer here first. We're going to start in the center of the dandelions, and I'm going to make that center part a little bit darker with the crumb cake, and then circle it out, making it a little bit lighter. Okay, so we're going to start in the center and make it fairly dark, and then just kind of work its way out. Okay, so we're just going to add more to the center, circling outward. And of course I'm going to add the crumb cake to the whole piece of Whisper White just to make it so it's not so vivid vanilla. I want it to look aged. Okay, so before I finish to the edge, I'm going to go ahead and tear this. Now I found that tearing the paper, I like the ripped side showing out. So I take the edge of the paper and I'm going to tear it towards myself. And I get that really nice frayed edge that I'm looking for, just like that. Okay, so then I can take my dabber and I can actually sponge the edge, but I'm going to actually do this with the Early Espresso as well. So let me go ahead and finish this piece. Okay, so now we're going to take our sponge with the early espresso, just to give it more of a deeper aged look to this layer here. Love that look. All right, so let me bring in the inside piece. I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did on the front, but I'm going to kind of just keep it centered on the dandelion and then the greeting. Isn't that beautiful? All right, so now we're going to go ahead and put our layers together. So first we're going to take our Very Vanilla piece, which doesn't look like Very Vanilla anymore. I'm going to lay this onto the early espresso. Okay, and I'm just going to mat this. So it's just like a 1/4 of an inch all the way around. And then see, this is where I had the extra of the cardstock so I can tear it. So once again, I'm going to tear it towards myself. And I'm going to swoop it down, like downhill, just slightly on this edge right here. Okay? And then we're going to do the exact same thing, layer it on the crumb cake. Okay, we're going to tear it towards us again. Just like that. So there's the front of our card. Okay, so now I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to take the early espresso and I'm going to sponge around the crumb cake just to age that a little bit as well. Okay, so there's our front piece. All right, so I think that's all the stamping. Now it's just a matter of building the card. Okay, so we're going to take this Very Vanilla lace trim. This is the trim that carried over from the last year's catalog. I love it. And I'm going to put adhesive on the back side. And I'm just going to drape this around to cover up that vanilla edge. Plus I'm going to wrap it with some linen thread as well. All right, now we're going to grab the linen thread. And I'm going to wrap this around a few times towards the bottom edge. Just like that. That looks pretty good. All right, now I'm going to pop this up on dimensionals. I'm just going to secure all those layers of ribbon in the linen thread. Okay. Just move that up a little bit. All right, then we're going to take our base of our card and we're just going to set it over towards the left. So it's not right smack dab in the middle of the center of the card. Just like that. Go ahead and put the inside in. Okay. Oh, it's so pretty. Okay, so then I used the True Gentleman buttons. These are what these look like. These were actually in the Occasions catalog and they also got carried over, so I was really excited about that. But this is the button that I used. I just used it on the opposite side for my finished card. And then I went ahead already and put a linen bow on that. So let me grab that. So this is the button with the linen bow on there. I'm going to put some more glue dots on the back side of that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set that aside just for a second. I went ahead already and stamped the Happy Birthday and I flagged the ends on both of them. Then I layered it with the early espresso and I popped this also up on dimensionals. This is just going to go right below that, those dandelions right about there. And then we'll take our button. I'm going to put this right over here to the left hand side, right here where that linen thread is. Oh, so pretty. Okay, so then one more thing that I added to the finished card is I added a little bit of Wink of Stella to the center of the dandelions. So pretty. I love this card. Okay, so let me show you the other one again. Okay, so here's the other one. Aren't they beautiful? Okay, so I have all the items listed below, and then don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss any future videos. Okay, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you later. Bye.